Bismillah Rahman Rahim. So let me check if it is recording. So now it is recording and connection is excellent. So let's move our learning chapter. Let me close this one here. We have to learn the following HTML objects. These are also accessible. So let's try each of one by one. Each of them one by one. Find finding HTML element using document.anchors. So there are three anchors named XML, CSS, and HTML. Okay, there will go every reference tag HR, href. So what we want to do, we want to display document.getElement by ID, document.anchors.length. So we want to get document.anchors, all the anchors in the documents, and then I want to get the length of that anchor. So let me run my code here in my side. Sorry. Basically, first of all, I need to put my HTML code. So let me add some spaces to be very clear about the code. Okay, where is the code of HTML? And this is the code of the HTML. Here I need to write the code of the JavaScript. What I want to do, I want to show document.getElement by ID. Let me see. There is ID demo, but in the file there is also a demo tag. A tag demo. What did I do? Okay, so here what I really want to do, let me make it bigger. I want to display all the length of how many anchor tags in the document. So doc, document that get element by ID. The ID demo inner inner HTML is equal to what is equal to document dot anchors dot length. I want to know the length of the anchor. So now there are three anchors. Let me remove the word length, then let's see what does it do. Still the answer is 3. So I want to know the length. Now document.body. JavaScript HTML DOM. Display document body. ID. So these are the here, and here is a p tag JavaScript HTML DOM. Display document body. This is as same easy as we find here. So now what I want to do, I want to display all the document body of the the all the thing in the body into the screen. So what will I do for guessing? We have this answer. So now what I want to do, let me add a horizontal line, a chart. So it will display. So now inside of this it will display this code again because I am going to know the body of the HTML. So document dot body. I want to know body. What I want to know body inside. I want to know the inner HTML elements or objects. So now again we have this one here. So this is the thing that we have in our body. So what is this document element? So now we want to know the element of the document. Document element dot inner HTML. So the document elements are these. Let me document dot document element dot inner HTML. Document dot document dot document element dot inner HTML. So again we are getting what we are getting. We are getting document element into the inner HTML format, into the text of the HTML. Okay. So document dot embeds. Let's see. The number of embeds. Document dot embed dot length. I really don't know what is the meaning of the embeds. I think embedded images are in the WordPress. I have learned it before. So let's check. This is the code of the HTML. So what I want to do, I want to know document.embed. Document.embed. Okay, let me see first. Get HTML collection. So I want to know the length of its. So the embeds, documents are 0. Embeds are 0. I really don't know what are the embeds. I still didn't. I'm not clear about it. So what I want to know the length of the form. For example, there is only one form in my document. Okay. Okay. So what I want to know, if I want to know the length of the document and length of the form in my document, I want to know how many forms are there in my document. Then I can get it by just a document dot get element. So data forms dot length. I want to know the length of the form. So we have one form. If I want to put the form itself, then form dot inner HTML. The form will be should be again itself. Okay, no problem. Dot length. So this is it. Now let's see head. Let me put it here elements. then let's see what does it do. Undefined. Okay. The length should be only one. I will do it in my side. So there is a HTML tag. Okay, here what I want to do basically, I want to know. Let me do this one. So I want to know the header. Head. So where is it? Let me show the display. So get HTML head element. If I want to know the head tag, it should return me one undefined. So that is the inner HTML. I want to show the header in the inner HTML. So there is nothing because no, there is something in my side. So now let's move to our learning chapter, that is 8. Document.images. So now what we will do, we will know, we will get the images in the HTML. So this is the image. These are the two images. This is the one image and this is the first second. Okay. So now we want to know the length of the image. So let me copy and paste this file here in my side. Where is the document in my side? Let me see. So in the HTML I paste this itself. So now what I want to know, I want to know document.images. So now there are two images at it showing. So let me check inner HTML. So now undefined. So now what I want to do, I want to know the length of the images tag in my HTML. So I will take the length. Now it is showing only two images are used in my site. HTML collections. Where it occurs again and again because I have it same. So now we are going to know about the object of the HTML document.links. So there are two links, a href that was the anchor that I know about before. So that we know the anchor still also return me to anchors. Let me do it in my side. Okay, so this is the code of the HTML. Let me put it here. What I want to know, I want to know the links. Dot links. Okay. Dot length. I also want to know the length. Let's the links. So there are two links in my HTML file. Okay. So what I want to do, I want to know the links itself. HTML collection link. dot inner HTML undefined. Okay, no problem. So let me check document dot anchors. Anchors. Object HTML collection dot length. So it means to say that if it doesn't exist, the link itself. Okay, then it will become an anchor. Now it is returning the one because one is the anchor and another is the link. So that is it. Document dot images, document dot links, dot links, document dot scripts. There are only one script. Sorry. Document dot script that okay dot length. I actually want to know the length of the scripts in my document. Only one. Okay. Let me remove the length tag. This is object HTML collection. So now the last time it is a title. What is the title of my document? I want to know. So here I want to know the title of the document. Title. It is document. Okay, well and good. And what I know, I want to know. I want to know in the header title. Let's see what does it do. No, it is not returning me anything. So let me pass a class. A ID is equal to head. So still there is no answer. Okay, no problem. So that is it. So let me check how many anchors in the p tag. P dot intro. In the intro class, how many p? So this is it. I am wrong a little bit. So that is it. Let me check the time of my live is 18 minutes. So let's move to our DOM HTML. JavaScript HTML DOM. So JavaScript HTML DOM. Changing HTML. Before we were learning about the HTML element. So now we are learning about the HTML DOM. The HTML DOM allows JavaScript to change the content of the HTML element. Okay. So changing HTML element content. Easiest way to modify the content of an HTML element is by using the inner HTML element property as we used to use it. To change the content of an HTML element, use this syntax. Document.get element by id.inner.html is equal to new HTML. So this is the p tag. Element. So now what we want to replace it? We want to replace it with the new text. So let me write here as the. And now what I want to do basically, I want to remove it with the text money. So now before it was a top, and now it has been removed with the Malik. Let's move down a little bit further. Example explained. The HTML document above contains a p tag element with ID p1. Okay. Use the HTML DOM to get the element with ID p1. Okay. I just change the content of the inner HTML to that element or to the new text. The example changes the content of an HTML1 element. Old heading. So now new heading. Actually, did, what we done, we stored this value into an element, and now we are accessing with the help of the element. So, let's okay. So now what we will do now, if for example we have the value. For example, we have a h1 tag. H1 tag here. This is heading. Okay. If this is the heading, so what I want to do now, I want to remove document dot get element by id. I want to declare a variable of constraint type. Okay, variable is element. Element is the variable. Let me element is the variable. I know I want to put the value of that element. I want to send some value to this element variable. So document dot get element by id demo. No, let me put the id demo. id id is equal to demo. So here now I can use the demo inner html. That is it. So now what I want to do, I will, I will, I will put this element variable. Element dot inner html is equal to this one is the this one is the new. This one is the new one. So before it was, let me see. So before it is this is heading, and now it is with it has been replaced with another one. So let me see the text below this. Example explained. The HTML document above contains an h1 element with id is equal to 01. So now HTML above contains an h1 element with id 01. We use HTML DOM to get element with id 01 and just change the content of the inner HTML of that element to the new heading. Okay. Changing the value of an attribute. To change the value of an attribute, use this syntax. Document that gets element by id. That was the inner HTML, and now we are going to change the attribute. So we have never change the value of the source attribute of an image. So let me do something here. I need to copy and paste the HTML coding here. And now what I need to do here too. So we are using the JavaScript in the middle of the HTML body text content. So here is the image already. The ID is image. Now first of all let me add two images in the back side of my uh, folder. Let me get two images in my site. This is my site and images are here. So I want to get two images, WordPress and web. Here paste it. Let me give the name of these images. One dot JPG, another one is the PNG. Two dot PNG. Okay. So now here there is the image. Source code is one dot JPG. Okay. So now what I want to do, I want to change this image. So document that gets element by ID. ID is image. Here what will I do? Inner this dot attribute. Attributes or attributes is equal to, that means go to example to the example. So I really I really don't need to put the name of the attribute as it. I have to write the attribute itself, source code. So now the source code must be changed into what? Into this value. 2 dot 2 dot png. I think so. The png is in this capital letter, so I need to must write into the capital letter because when we work with the server it occurs the error. So this is looking like WordPress. Before of this it was web, and now it is looking, sorry, so now it has been changed into the WordPress. WordPress. Explained example below. The HTML element contains an image tag with the ID my image. I think the ID is only image. Yes, my image. The ID is my image. Okay. We use the HTML DOM to get the element with ID is equal to my image. Okay. A JavaScript changes the source attribute of that element from smiley GF to the from 1 to 2. Okay. Dynamic in my side. Dynamic HTML content. JavaScript can create dynamic HTML content. So date is equal to web. January 30, 2021, 18, 36, 50. GMT plus 0500 Western Standard Time. This is the standard time. Here the standard time is this. So dynamic HTML content. Dynamic HTML content. So here what I need to do really, let me remove this one and this one too. Here is a script, let me remove this one too. So here is the script. What I want to do, I want to know the document.get element. Let me declare a variable element and assign to the value of the document.get element by id. Document.get element by id. By id demo. So here I have to declare p tag. P tag, p tag. The id should be is equal to demo. So here end of the statement. Now I want to put the element data. Inner HTML should be equal to what? Date. So it should show us the date. So here there is a string that is showing the date concatenation date function. Where is my Z? Now it is showing us the date pattern is January 30 as it is here 1850 GMT 0500 standard time. Okay. Sorry, let's close it. Document.write method. In JavaScript, document.write method can be used to write directly to the HTML output stream. So in the JavaScript, document.write can be used to write directly to the HTML output string. What is it? I really don't know. So blah blah blah. There is a p tag. Script document.write data date document.write method. In JavaScript, document.write can be used to write directly to the HTML output string. So we don't need to write here that one, that is thing dot write method. Inside of this method the date should be shown. Instead of writing all of the things what I will write document dot write what it should write. It should write date. So now it is in front of us. It is showing us the date. Let me add here. This is today. Well, it is not working well because I write it to the wrong side. I have to write it here. This is today. So now it is looking like as we want. Whenever you use document.write after the document is loaded, it will overwrite the document. Whenever you use document.write after the document is loaded, it will overwrite the document. So use the HTML DOM to change the value of the image structure. Let me close this one too. So here is the exercise. Use the HTML DOM to change the value of the image source code. So here we need to write the source. SRC source code is equal to this. Submit. So that is it. So now let's move to the next of this page. To our next chapter, that is it. DOM forms. So now it is time to deal with the forms. JavaScript form validation. HTML form validation can be done by JavaScript. It is a form field F name is empty. Form validation can be done by the JavaScript. If a form field F name is empty, let me check. Is empty, this function alerts the message and returns false to prevent the form from being submitted. So document.form, my form and the F name. F name is the form field dot value. If the value is empty, then it should alert. Name must be filled out. Return, it should return false. To the function false, okay. So the function can be called when the form is submitted. So there is a form named my form, there is a field named with F name. So on submit return validate form. Actually validate form is the function. Okay. Method is the post method. Name is equal to. So now we need to try it with ourselves. With our shell. So here let me copy and paste the code of the form. Let's remove all of this code here, the script code, and here the HTML code. This is the coding of the form. So now what I want to do basically, I want to create a function named on submit it should return to the validation function. So function, what is the function? Let me function. Okay, so this is the function by default. Validate form. Here what I need to do, here let me declare a variable, constraint type of variable x that must be assigned to the document.form. Form name is but my, that means my form. Let me copy and paste as is it to be safe from the coding. Here this is the field name. Now I need to put the field name. The field name is input f name. The field name is f name. Okay. So now what we need to do, we need to get the value of this input. Here I need to put the if condition in terms of check the code of the x. If x is equal to null value, then what should it do? It should return us. Not it should return us, it should alert us. It should be the null. Then it should alert us. Alert function. It should alert us first, but it should alert us the field is empty. Must be name must be filled out. So it is a field of the name. So we can also write it name must be filled out. So now after that what does it do? As it should return false. No, the else can't be. It should return as false because we have got the field empty by default too already, because we already didn't meet with our condition. So let me save it and run into here. It should need to give us pop-up. So there is something remaining that we didn't put here. So let me check what is the thing. So we need to put into the double quotes because these are the name of the variable. So now it is returning as a pop-up. Name must be filled out. Name must be filled out. So we have done with this. So let's move to next. JavaScript can also validate the numeric input. JavaScript is often used to validate numeric input. Please input a number between 1 to 10. 1 and 10. If I would put the 11, it is returning as not valid. So let it still it is running as not valid, so let it make 5. So now the input is okay. So we know we have done it before, but now we have to done it again. In terms to have a hands-on experience of our code. So let me copy and paste the type is a button or click this function should run. So what I need to do basically I need to get the value from this input. So now let's declare a variable. Constraint type of variable x that has the value of this input document dot get element by id is num. Okay. What we want to get the value of this element. Dot value. Dot value. Okay. So now what we want to do, actually I need to put it into the function when it should be called. When you click onto the function, this function. So function control R V to make it beautify. So this is the function as is it. So now if I put the file, then it is still submitted. Nothing is occurring. So now what we want to do basically, we have got the value. So here I need to put the if condition. If x is x is equal to 1 or x is, let me check what I need to do. If x is not, I need to check the code because I have forgot. So first of all we have assigned this value. That is it. That is one correct as we have. So I am receiving the call. I will record the video again. So now the call is ended. Let's complete this code first. Where the text is here, because I want to give some value to the text. Okay, and then I will call with the text. If I don't want to give this some value with the text here, I can put the alert button. So I will do it in my side. So now let's declare a variable. That type of variable text that has the null value. That has the null value. So but if the user puts the alphabet, so what we have to do, we have to add the name is name method is name. What is name? The name is x. Okay, the first condition is when or is name or x is less than 1 or x is greater than 10. This is my condition. When the condition this is, then it should assign the value to the text, the value to the text. But if the input is not a number is less than 1 or is greater than 1, then it should show the invalid invalid input. The statement ends. The statement ends. So now I need to code for the else. Here in the else, what did I need to do? I need to assign the value of text variable to input is okay. So now let's call our code inside of this function too. Because we are working inside of this function too. Document.get element by id demo. It should return us what inner estimate should be equal to text. So now submit because it was the empty. It also was the empty and because it was not a number. So space submit. Let me refresh it. Space submit. Okay, so now what I want to do, I want to write the 0 still invalid. Let me write the still invalid. Okay, so let me write the 5. Now the input is okay, that is 8. So instead of writing this code, what I need to do basically, I can also paste the alert. Here my alert should be n, and I also have to add the alert. It should alert me. Submit. It is alerting me. So no, not we don't need to add this let text variable. So that is it for our side. What I have done in my HTML, there is a field with the ID num. There is a button. Type is the button, and when we click onto the button, it should run this code over script. This code of script. So that is it. Let's remove it and go to next. Here, automatic HTML form validation. Automatic HTML form validation. The HTML form validation can be performed automatically by automatic form validation. The HTML form validation can be performed automatically by the browser. Yes, we got it. In the form validation, the F name is empty. So we should need to pass the word keyword at required. Prevents from the code. The max is so let me do it myself. It is the automatic form validation by the HTML. Automatic HTML form validation. So here in my site, what will I do? I'm learning is just about form validation. Action PHP dot something. It could be anything. So is not important still. Input type is text and type is text. So let me put it wide. Once it has been wide, let me input the another field that is button. The type is submit. If the type is submit, the value should be is equal to the value should also be submit. The field of this. So let me also pass the number. So max is but 10, minimum is but 1. So now 0 submit. It shouldn't submit. The type is number. Okay. So now 0. 0 must be greater than or greater or equal than this. Let me close this one and put empty. The field filled out. Must please fill out this field. Well, must be less than or equal to 10. That is it. Something is the problem here. I think so. Okay. So let's move to below. Automatic HTML form validation does not work in the Internet Explorer 9 or earlier. Data validation. So data validation is the process of ensuring that user input is often clean, correct, and useful. Data validation. Why data validation? Data validation is the process of ensuring that the user input is clean, correct, and useful. Typical validation tasks are typical validation tasks are what the task what is not. The typical validation tasks are have the user filled in the all required fields. Has the user filled in all required fields? Has the user entered a validate? Has the user entered text in the numeric field? Most often, the purpose of data validation is to ensure correct user input. Validation can be defined by many different methods and deployed in many different ways. Server-side validation is performed by a web server after input has been sent to the server. Client-side validation is performed by a web server before input is sent to a web server. Is performed by a web server before the input is sent to a web server. HTML constraint validation. HTML5 introduced a new HTML validation concept called constraint validation. We have learned it before. So HTML constraint validation is based on constraint validation HTML input attribute, constraint validation HTML pseudo selector, constraint validation DOM properties and methods. Properties and method. Document that get element by ID is the method dot inner HTML is the property or inner source is the property. Constraint validation HTML input attributes. The attribute disabled description specifies that the input should be disabled. Attribute disabled specifies that the input element should be disabled. Attribute max specifies the value of an input. HTML constraint validation HTML attributes. Okay, disable specifies that the input element should be disabled. Max specifies the maximum value of an input element. Minimum specifies the minimum value of an input element. Pattern specifies the value pattern of an input element. Required specifies the input must be entered. Field required an element. Type specifies the type of the input element. So all HTML element input attributes are here. So we have learned it before in the HTML element. HTML form in the language of the HTML. Okay. Constraint validation CSS pseudo selector. So pseudo selectors are disabled. Select input element with the disabled attribute specified. Invalid. Select input element with invalid values. Optional. Select input element with no required attribute specified. Required. The select input element with the required attribute specified. Valid selects input element with valid values. So we have also learned about the pseudo class in the CSS. So that is it. Let's move to next CSS. DOM CSS. Inside of the DOM CSS, JavaScript HTML DOM changing CSS. JavaScript HTML DOM. In HTML DOM allows JavaScript to change the style of an HTML element. The HTML DOM allows JavaScript to change DOM CSS. JavaScript HTML DOM changing CSS. The HTML DOM allows JavaScript to change the style of the HTML element. Changing HTML style to change the style of an HTML element, use this syntax. Document.get element by id style.property is equal to new style. The following example changes the style of an p tag element. P tag element. The following example changes the style of the p tag element. So the p tag, there is an element p tag p2. P tag with the id p2. The colors must be blue. So there here we will learn about the CSS properties. let's see. First of all, let's add a text in the p tag. Once we will have the text in the p tag, then we can change its properties. Sorry, let me check. It is streaming. Yes, it is streaming. And yes, all thing is red. So now let's start. There is a P1 and there is a P2 with the same HTML tag values. So here, let's make it beautify. So here we have the Altaf, Malik, Malik, Altaf. So what we need to work in the JavaScript. We are going to change the style of our code. So here we have this value that we saved it. We have this value. So document dot get element by ID, get element by ID p2 dot style dot property. So the property is I want to change the color. Color is should be to blue. So now the color has become the blue. Again, let me call it with font family should be Arial and font size should be larger. Actually, to dealing with the font size, larger is new thing. We didn't learn in the CSS. Day 1, 2. It is not duplicating the line of code. So the font family, font family should be Arial. Okay, so the font size should be larger. So now that is it. The following example changes the style of the pair tag element. Using events, the HTML DOM allows you to execute code when an event occurs. The HTML DOM allows you to execute the code when an event occurs. Events. Using events. Events are generated by the browser when things happen to HTML element. An event is clicked on, the page has loaded, the input fields are changed. These are the events. You will learn more about the events in the next chapter of this tutorial. This example changes the style of the HTML element with ID is equal to ID when the user clicks on the button. So this is the event. We put it into the so button type button on click document that get element by ID demo dot style dot color is equal to red. So let me close this code too. So here there is a button, click me. Let me refresh it. The color is black. When I will click on the button, the color will be blue. That is it. So here in the HTML, there is a h1 tag. The start button is the text in the h1 tag. So now I need to pass the ID. ID is equal to demo, for example. So let's declare a button below to here button. Type should be button 2, and now I am going to add the event, HTML DOM event. We are learning about the HTML DOM events. So using event. Now I am using the event. On click attribute is the event is the attribute of the button. When we click onto the button, this function should run. This code of JavaScript should run document that get element by ID. Document dot get element by ID demo dot inner HTML should be equal to. No, I'm going to change the style of the button. Dot style dot color should be is equal to what? Should be equal to blue. It's not working. Okay, let me add something in the button. Click me. So once I will click it, here I need to pass only single quotes. So once I will click on the button, the color of my text has been changed into the blue. More example. Visibility, how to make an element invisible. Do you want to show the element or not? That is good. More example visibility. Let's look it into the visibility. That will be amazing. As we work with the navigation, we make it toggle. So high text, the text should have has been hidden. Then show text, is the text has been shown. So let me add here what a text. I need to add two buttons. Here this is text, so let me add this button too again. Now ID is equal to P1. So what I want to do, I want to hide this button. So hide, and let me name this button show. So now let's code the property of the CSS dot visibility. Visibility is equal to what is equal to height, and the visibility is equal to what? Visibility is equal to show display. I think so. Visible, visible. So here hide me. It is not working. Let me check because I didn't pass the ID. The ID is P1. Yeah, same. The ID is P1. So the ID is P1 in the HTML. So save it. Hide. The text should be hidden. This is the property of the CSS hidden, and display is also the property of the CSS. Then I will also work with that one. The text has been hidden. So after that, let me click onto the visible, so the text has been shown. So here, let me remove this one and add display. Hidden display. The display is not working. So it means here in the JavaScript we use to need to use the this invisible property. Visible. So now it is hidden. It is visible. HTML DOM style object reference. Object references. To be really honest, we will read the references after the learning of all languages. So let's have a look into the references of the JavaScript. In which language we are? We are in the HTML DOM. There are style and there are style references, a lot of references. Actually, we are in the JavaScript references. Now you can see we are in the JavaScript references. So here, text yourself with exercise. Change the text of the color. Change the text color of the p tag element to red. So what I need to do, the code has been done already. Here style. So style dot color. What I am going to do, it tag of element of ID style dot color is equal to red. This should be the correct, but it is not. Okay, sorry, I was wrong. Document dot style dot color. So let's move to our next chapter, that is DOM animation. So in DOM animation, JavaScript HTML DOM animation. Learn to create HTML animation using JavaScript. A basic web page. To demonstrate how to create HTML animation with JavaScript, we will use a simple web page. So this is a simple web page. my first JavaScript animation, div animation, my animation will go here. Create an animation container. All animation should be related to a container element. So div id is equal to container. Div id is equal to animate. My animation will go here. So as it what we did, we added into a parent div and the div id is the container. So style the element. So this is a CSS. The container element should be created with style. Position is equal to relative. The animation element should be created with style position absolute. So the container element should be created with style position relative. The animation should be created with the style position absolute. So here in the animator, the position is the absolute. Width is 400 pixel, height is 400 pixel, position relative as is 8, background is yellow. Animate. Width is equal to 50 pixel, height is equal to 50 pixel, position is equal to absolute. So the color should be red. Let me open the folder. So that is it. Why of this? Because it is absolute and it is also a 50 pixel only. Animation code. So let me do it. Let me do myself. First, let me do it with myself. There is a paragraph my first JavaScript animation H2 heading. In the H2 heading, let's move to our coding. That is it. Here, what will I do? Let's move all of the code and go into a simple HTML page. Doc type HTML. Okay, the language should be removed. HTML starts and HTML ends. There should be a header, but here in my side there is no header tag. So let's move the header tag. Control Alt B. So here let me add this type. Here H2 tag. This is my first JavaScript animation. Okay, so now let's have to div inside of div. So here this ID of this should div should be is equal to container, and the ID of this should is equal to container animate. Okay, so here what we want to do is actually first of all with the ID container, what does it done? sorry. So here the ID container, the visitor, sorry, should be 400 pixel, height should be 400 pixel, resolution should be relative, and the color should be the yellow. Background color should be the yellow. So let me check. We have found this one. So let's go to this animate animate. Here width should be equal to 50 pixel, height should be equal to 50 pixel, so I am receiving the call.